Steam here. In this video we're going to talk about how we can make the Steamy Tech Explorer Coaster Kit. It's this coaster right here, although hopefully when you're done you have something that's really pretty with all kinds of cool colors on it or wood stain on it. And this is what we're going to make. And this video is going to be all about how to open and build your Explorer Coaster Kit. If you haven't yet taken a look at the techniques videos, please do so. They'll talk about what you'll do for preparing the wood and what tools you'll need as you get started. But I'm going to start just by opening the box for you here, and we'll take a quick look at what's involved. So I'm going to slide the sleeve off the side and get it out of my way, and I'm going to cut this top with my screwdriver since I don't have a pair of scissors handy. And I'm just going to open that. Oh, right away. And I'm just going to open this box. And you'll notice inside that there's a bunch of hints to help you get started. And you've probably already done that, as well as this card that's going to tell you about the parts and pieces that are in this box. So what we'll do next is move the camera and then open the box and take a look at the parts and pieces that are inside it. Talk a little bit about what you'll need to do in terms of sanding and preparation on those pieces. And then we'll go through the process of assembling your coaster. Now that we've opened our package, let's take a look at the pieces and parts that are within it and talk about what you'll need to do to prepare your parts. I'm going to start by pulling the whole stack out of the box and flipping it over upside down. You'll notice first on the bottom there's a circle here that doesn't look like it's exactly the right size. This is actually a small circle. You'll have some piece of scrap. It might have little gear teeth on the edges in your box. And you can just use that for checking out your decorations and doing whatever you need. Your bottom also has this piece of plastic on it that's covered with paper on both sides, brown paper on both sides. We don't need that right now, so I'm going to set that aside till the very end. And then we can start talking about the pieces in our project. I'm going to use this on the side because we'll need it when we get going. But this is our bottom. You'll notice that it has the Steamy Tech logo on it and some spaces for feet. And the piece that will glue to it when you do your assembly is the bottom itself. That gives us a way to protect your table from the head of the screw that'll be coming through here. And then we're going to have this ring of gears called an analyst. And we'll take our gears out of the box now, and I'm going to open them up so you can see where they go. Now make sure when you're sanding that you sand the bottom surface there. And also that you sand the bottom of your gears. They're going to go in here approximately like so when we're ready to assemble it. And I'll show you a little easier way to make sure those get spaced properly. So make sure you sand the bottom of the gears and the top of the gears before you decorate it. And then we're going to take our coaster itself and we're going to put our coaster on top like this. And finally, we're ready to put the pieces on that make it a coaster. So we're going to use one of these thicker rings as a spacer for the screw heads that will be coming up here. Then we'll use this thin ring and we'll put the acrylic into that thin ring. And finally, we'll glue this thick ring on top that will hold the whole piece together. So notice that there are lots of corners that can be seen. Make sure you sand it to make it feel good to the touch. Even on this thin ring, depending on what you're doing, you may at least want to make it dark with a Sharpie or something else to make sure that if you're not lined up perfectly, that it doesn't peek out the side at you. Some people like to make sure once they've built it, they're going to color all the sides with the pieces built. Some people like the laser cut sides, and you'll get a chance to decide how to do that. So your next step in this project is to go through and sand and prepare your wood, and then to decorate it however you want to, whether that's with wood stains or Sharpies or something else. Once you've done that, come back and watch the rest of the video, and I'll walk you through the assembly of your Kinetic Explorer coaster. All right, we're back, and now we're ready to actually assemble our Explorer coaster. And we're going to take all these pieces apart, and we'll walk through the steps involved in doing that. And the first step in the process is to glue this ring, the analyst ring, to the base. And this is probably the most important step to get those two done smoothly. And you want to make sure you don't get glue sticking out in the glue teeth. If you're using super glue, you can run a nice thin line of super glue all the way around the outside edge. And then I'm going to set it here and make sure it's lined up perfectly on all sides. And give that a second to dry with it all lined up. If you got the glue too close to the outer edge, then it's going to smoosh out the sides. And if it smooshes out the sides, then you can just use a paper towel on it to wipe away any of that extra smushing. It will end up creating a bunch of big brightly colored, brightly lit up stuff if you don't, and we don't like shiny, so we want to get rid of the shiny. So that's step number one. Step number two is actually getting your top piece ready, and we're going to need our hardware kit for that. In your hardware kit, you're going to find 3/4 inch screws, 3/4 inch screws, short ones, 1/2 inch screw and 1 nut, and a set of feet. So what we want to do first is we want to take these 1/4 inch screws and we want to fasten them in. We're going to glue them in place. So I'm just going to put a dot of glue here in the middle. And I'm going to smush them in. If they don't go in easily, then just use your screwdriver and screw them in so that they go in nice and tight. We have to make sure these don't fall out. So the glue in these is really important so that the screws themselves don't back out and you end up having your entire piece no longer work. So make sure you get these screws in place so that the gears will spin properly on them. It makes it spin much better. And if a screw were to fall out, things wouldn't work at all. Once you've done that, again, you may want to flip it over and wipe off any extra glue just so that the size doesn't get out of control. And you want to give that a minute to dry because you definitely don't want those screws to actually glue to your gears. Now for this, I'm just going to take that 1/2 inch screw and run it straight up through the top. And I'm going to put my big gear on the top of that screw. And then I'm going to take my little gears and my top and I'm going to flip it upside down. Now the other way I can do this is I can just put this in the middle of those gears like so. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sandwich them together. So I'm putting the screw through that top piece for me, making sure that all goes together smoothly and my coaster will spin. But I don't have any way to fasten it together yet. So I need to take this screw down through the top. And I'm just going to screw it down. No glue on this one. I definitely want this to stay nice and loose. Now the secret of making all Steamy Tech products is loose screws. So I'm going to screw this in, but I'm going to give myself just a little bit of space under the top. And it's spinning oh so nicely. So now I'm going to flip it over. And we want to put a nut on the bottom. If you were just to put it on without any attachment, it would either tighten up or it would fall off, neither of which is a good case. So I'm going to use super glue for this. If you have thread locker, you can use thread locker for this, and I'm just going to put a drop of glue on the screw heads themselves, and I'm going to screw that on. Again, I'm going to give myself just a little bit of space between the bottom of the screw and the bottom of the nut and the wood. Usually the design is just to put them flat. So if the top of the screw and the top of the nut are flat, then you're usually in pretty good shape. And you'll notice that I can now go spin, spin, spin. And since that's on, I'm now ready to attach the bottom. So I'm going to run a set of glue around the bottom like so. Flip this over and glue this down. Push down on that. And while I'm working here on the bottom of the piece, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my feet on the bottom of this. Now these are self-stick feet. You will be tempted to not glue them on. You can certainly do that, but in my experience, they stick much better and stay much longer if you use a little super glue on them. Just a little bit of super glue, not a lot of super glue. It's all about just a little bit of glue. And now I have a fun spinny thing, but it's not very useful as a coaster yet. So what we're going to do next is start to work on our coaster layers. And the first thing we need to do is add this ring. So to add this ring, I'm going to simply put a layer of glue here around like so, and glue this on. And I want to make sure it's centered so it's pretty. Pretty is always good. And now I'm ready for that thin piece I mentioned earlier. We want to glue it on here. Now be a little careful with this. This does deform, and when you glue it down, you definitely don't want it to deform. So I'm going to go all the way around this. And I'm going to ever so carefully place it on top. Again, if you're using wood glue, you'll let it dry completely, clamp it together and let it dry. If you're using super glue, you do want to let it dry completely as well this time. Now here's the story. Super glue and acrylic are not friends with each other. They don't like each other at all. If you get super glue on your acrylic, badness will happen. So, because of that, I'm going to make sure that I let that dry completely. And then I'm ready to peel my acrylic. And we're ready to get ready for the tricky step of the project. So I'm going to take my acrylic. You can use a screwdriver or something else sharp to start it. And I'm actually going to make a little bundle with it. You can do it however you want to, but I'll show you what I like doing to put the glue or the acrylic into the piece. So I've made a little bundle on this side. And I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to do that same thing on this other side for a minute. You're actually going to peel this side completely off, but I'm going to make a bundle with it so I have a place to set it down while I do the one last step of prep I need to do. Like I said, if you don't have nails, you can use a screwdriver or something else to get it started. I think I finally have managed. There we go. And again, I'm just going to make a little bundle on this bottom. You want to make sure you don't get fingerprints on it or dust on it or anything else, but by leaving the bottom bundle on it, I've got a way to set it for a minute. And now I'm going to put a ring of glue around this top piece. And as I said, super glue doesn't play with acrylic nicely, so be careful and gentle. If you're a young one, you might want to have a parental unit assist in this layer of glue and this step in the process. So now I've got glue on there, and we want to glue this on top, but I want to put the acrylic in first. So I'm going to take my 2 acrylic pieces, which I've already managed to get dust on. And I'm going to peel off one of my little bundles the rest of the way. And I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to set it gently in there. And then I'm going to take the top ring and set it on top. If you deformed that bottom circle some, it may be tight or a tight fit. When you do that, you can push on it a little bit to get it in, but by doing it in these 2 steps, you should be able to get a nice glue layer on the coaster without a problem. And there you have it, your very own Kinetic Explorer coaster, all ready for you to play with and use to go exploring with.